Good morning. At least it's morning here in the Ozarks, Springfield, Missouri, where I live in the USA. I know that it's a different time for some of you. We have a global audience. We have people from England, from Brazil, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, India. I'd love for you to, if you're here, just give me a shout out and tell me where you're from. And I'm going to get started. There's been a lot of people sign up and express interest in this topic. Authenticity, don't use authenticity as an excuse. I got to thinking about this after I had already posted it, and I thought maybe this doesn't sound business-like enough. It just kind of sounds like it's personal growth and it doesn't have anything to do with business. So I want to start by saying it does have something to do with business, because we talk about authentic leadership and being authentic, and we use the word all the time. And so I want to make sure that I make a distinction about that word, because I'm starting to see a trend where we're using it as an excuse for all kinds of behaviors. So I'm going to check in. Some people are saying hi. Thank you so much. We got someone here from the UK. We've got Denver, Colorado. Thank you. Hi there. We've got someone, Patricia from Palm Beach, Florida. So we got a lot of people from the US this time. India, Manoj, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Hey, James, friend of mine. We talked a couple of weeks ago. So glad to see all of you here. Here's someone from LA. Hi there. So glad you're all here. We have someone here from Poland. It's always fun to bring up different countries that I haven't noticed before. I do try to go back and check in afterwards and mention people. So if I ever leave you out, it's not intentionally. I'm really trying to meet everybody right where they are. We got Mexico. This is really fun that we have such a global audience. Just goes to show there's a lot of us that want unity, a lot of us that want to be better leaders. I think we're the ones that can do it. Hey, Loretta, a friend of mine from Volt. Yay, one of my favorite local businesses. Okay, so I'm going to start with a story. One of my clients, CEO clients, was telling me that, we were working together because he was really working on his inner game. I call it the inner game. And I just admire people so much that do that. And his goal was to stop triggering at some board meetings where he felt like there was sort of a bully board member, investor, I'm not sure. I can't remember if it was an investor, board member, both, but just felt like he was triggering and always speaking up and nobody else was. And from his perspective, this bully intimidated other people, and therefore he always was the one that was pushing back. And it wasn't conducive to good discussion, good teamwork, and yet he found this person to be very high conflict. And I've done a lot of work on high conflict with some of my LinkedIn learning programs, working with difficult people as a manager, anger management, some of that. So he had found one of my articles. We started working together, and it's always so exciting to me when someone has a really big success. And he had texted me and we got on the phone. He said, I'm so excited. He said, I didn't trigger and it was so hard. And I said, how do you feel? He said, every bone in my body felt like it wanted to scream out. And I've realized there's always time for that. And I didn't do it. And I said, so how did everybody else respond? Did they just cow down, and did this kind of bully person win with his ideas? And he said, no, actually, they spoke up for the first time. Now, I have something to say about that later, about when we do other people's emotional work, why sometimes it feels like you're not being supported. If we're the strongest voice in the room, sometimes others don't have that chance, and we need to learn how to self-regulate and hold back. So I'm going to talk about some of that today. I'm going to jump back in and recognize some other people. Hi there, Joy, Cape Town. Yes, here's one from Holly from Vietnam. Wow, I don't think I've ever had anyone from there before. Maryland, I get a lot from Maryland. All right. Hey, Brent. So, friend of mine, glad to see you. All right. So that's the story. So here's the point I'm going to make about this. I believe one of the top skills we're going to need in the very near future, we need it now, is the ability to self-regulate. And when I say that, I don't hold myself out of that equation. I've struggled with anger. I've struggled with being sarcastic, being impatient. Sometimes I still do. But I believe in sharing this, I can say that leadership's a journey. It is a journey of inner work, and you do have to examine yourself, and you do have to be open to seeing your blind spots. And the reason I believe it's more important than ever for all of us to do this work is that we're living in very volatile times. I started seeing this trend in 2015, right when I was writing No Drama Leadership, my book, No Drama Leadership. And I believe maybe it was published in 2015 or 2016. So it might have been about 2013 or 14 when I was really seeing this trend. The trend was on social media, and I was seeing people arguing and backbiting and being really cruel in the way they attacked each other. And so I predicted that it's going to get worse, because with more choice comes more responsibility. And we all have more choice now due to social media, due to we all have a broadcast system. We can share our opinion across the world, as you can see today. That's happening with me. I've got someone right here, even from Brazil. Here's someone from India. We can, with the right technology and with the right understanding, we can get our message. If we're a thought leader on any level, we can get our message out across the world. And so it's becoming more volatile because we're not taking responsibility for the messages that we're sending. And I made the prediction that it's going to get worse. And people would say, well, that's only behind the computer and from the just from the safety and security of being behind a computer. And I said, no, that's just desensitizing us. It's going to start happening more and more. Well, then COVID happened, and then we're all on Zoom and we're working virtually. And what I started seeing, and I saw this a couple of times on a Zoom meeting with group participation, someone hijacked the meeting. They were offended. They didn't think to hold back and have the conversation later, and it hijacked the entire meeting. And this was something that we all paid for to attend, and yet someone was offended by something. And I'm not saying they don't have the right to be offended or even to address things, but there's something to be said about backstage versus front stage, timing, intention, and purpose. And for some reason now we're starting to say, well, you know what? I'm just being authentic, and someone has to speak up, and that's just the way I am. And so what I call that is using authenticity as an excuse for inappropriate behavior that does no good to the final result we're trying to achieve. And it's only about me and mine and my feelings and what I think is right. There's this lack of curiosity and this, I'm so certain about your intentions and about what you understand a certain word to mean or a certain phrase to mean. And the rules are changing all the time, and we're canceling people and fighting with people and becoming the very thing that we're against. In fact, I posted something not long ago where I said, whenever you're easily offended, you want other people to change. And when you want other people to change and they don't change, you then become even more offended. And then you do the very thing to them that they do to you, and you create the thing you say you don't want. I always believe we have to be the change that we want to be in as leaders, whatever aspect, wherever you're leading in a family, leading a PTA, leading a corporation, leading a department, leading a team. We have to be the ones. We're the ones that's going to change things. That's the burden we have of leadership. And I count myself as a leader with the work that I do. And so I want to talk about authenticity and how we're using it as an excuse. So I want to say this. What are we being authentic to? It's sort of like alignment. What am I aligning to? In order to align, there has to be clarity first. What island am I trying to get to? And now I know whether I'm rowing in that direction or not. Same thing with authenticity. Am I authentic to the wounded child who has no self-control? Because obviously I've been there before. I've been authentic to a little temper tantrum, or I've been authentic to my impatience or my hurt feelings. And that has showed up in my behavior and my language. And I haven't known it sometimes. And I really felt like I was an honest, open person. And sometimes I'm being authentic, but it's authentic to something from my past. And are we going to be authentic to the part of us that needs attention? Are we going to be authentic to the part of us that lacks discipline and self-regulation? Is that how we want to be authentic? Or is there another way to still be authentic? And I believe there is. I believe there's authentic to my best self, the self that I'm not yet, the self that I'm striving to be. Can I be authentic to a future self that wants more? And in order to do that, I have to know what that future self is. I have to build an identity around that. Can I be authentic to values and ideas and ideals? Can I be authentic to that? Only if I think about it, only if I strive for it. Can I be authentic to one who has developed and has done the inner work? So this is the question I ask myself and my clients and others. Do you want to be a victim of circumstances and be authentic to that? Or do you want to be the master of your own experience? So that's the question that I'm asking on authenticity, because we use that word, we throw it around, and now all of a sudden we're using it to mean different things. We're using it to mean like, that's the reason I misbehaved. That's the reason I said what I said. Hey, after all, I'm just being truthful. So what I want to give you now is 3 rules and 3 tools. And I want to check in real quick. If anybody's got a comment, a question, I'm willing to put that up here. Hi from Brazil. Got a lot of people that I've become friends with on LinkedIn from Brazil. I think they translated one of my LinkedIn learnings to Portuguese. That's a hard language. I've tried. Thank goodness for Google where it can be translated. So thank you for attending. So let's go on then. So 3 rules and 3 tools. Okay, so the first rule is this. I was just giving this to a friend of mine the other day who was struggling a little bit with some anger, going through, whenever we go through grief. Grief brings up our anger because there's past issues that we haven't resolved. And the way that I look at all these emotions is not to judge anybody, including myself, but just to say that anger and strong emotions is just energy that wants to go somewhere. If we take the judgment out, we can say, okay, I'm angry, I lashed out, that was inappropriate, but it's not being authentic. It's energy that wants to be channeled, and I don't know how to channel it yet. And so when we were talking, I said, lashing out, she was afraid, that she might lash out at a funeral to someone in her family that she had a lot of anger about. And I really appreciate it when people can just own their anger. It's an emotion. It's a feeling. We get it from thoughts. We get it from past circumstances. It's something that we as human beings, anger is not the truth, but it's the fuel that can get you there. And if you want to check out more on my beliefs about anger and what I've researched and studied on LinkedIn Learning, I have anger management. And it really helped me cure some of my anger issues. But anger is just unresolved energy sometimes, or it means you have to set a boundary or you haven't asked for what you want. There's a lot of things that anger can mean. We just can't believe that it's the truth of the situation. That's the key. And so I said to her, I said, you know what? You're afraid you might lash out. She said, yes, I am. And I said, well, lashing out is never plan A. Lashing out is never plan A. Lashing out is plan B. As long as you know that you can still do that if you need to, it'll be a conscious decision versus a reaction from issues that aren't healed within you. And so she said, wow, that's really helpful. She said, lashing out is not plan A. What that means is you have to have a plan. You can't just react from subconscious programmings. Okay, so that's one of the rules. A lot of content, I could do a whole program on that. But I just want you to understand that lashing out, speaking up about your being angry, maybe it's not plan A, maybe it's plan B. And you can always circle back around. Sometimes there's no time like the present, but at other times, you need to wait. You need to do that after the fact in private. There's different ways to look at things. So discernment in leadership is really big for me. So the second rule is to stop overcompensating. And what that means is when we start to take on other people's issues that is not our work to do, we feel all kinds of energy, all kinds of emotions. We feel sorry for people. We start to see them as a victim. And in my book, I'm talking about this. You can be victimized. Maybe you were victimized by some circumstance, some person, some group, but you don't have to identify as a victim. So when we look at people as victims and that we have to fix everything and that someone was done wrong, we have to recognize that sometimes they had choices that they didn't take and it's not our work to do. So I want to circle back around to my story at the beginning about Victor. When he quit doing everyone else's emotional work, they spoke up. When he let them actually feel something instead of him doing all the feeling work. And it sounds weird to say the man did this feeling work. Men are human. They feel. I don't know where we've got this idea. Men and women are different. There's differences for sure. but they're human beings. And so they have emotions and thoughts and responses. And sometimes it's more aggressive, but it's still an experience. It's still a feeling. And so when he stopped doing all that work for everybody else, they started speaking up. They had his back. So it's pretty exciting. And so I want to say this about overcompensating, because I have been the biggest overcompensator in the world in my nuclear family. So I speak from experience here. And what I know is that a lot of times when we do that, it's not a character flaw. It's either because we care a little too much and we don't see other people as creators, or it's from just old programming. So I want you to think about this and how this affects your leadership. Did you ever hear, "You really disappointed your mother"? So in other words, you're responsible for how your mother feels. Instead of "you did something, she had a reaction to it, but it's all your fault." It's not a co-creation. So you got blamed for how your mother felt. Or "you should know better." This is one that I heard. "You should know better. You're the oldest. So you don't get to make a mistake. You should have all this wisdom being 2 years older than your sibling. You should know better. It's up to you to be more responsible than everybody else." So then you start being responsible for everybody else, and no one else gets to take any credit for bad behavior, for poor performance. You should know better. You're the oldest. You have seniority. Don't make your dad angry. In other words, it's not up to the adult to manage their energy. It's up to you to manipulate, to behave a certain way, to be quiet, to get out of the way. I know that I'm speaking to a lot of people here that's had angry parents, that's had dysfunctional families, and let's face it, most of us have. I have. I'm willing to share some of that so that you can see that this isn't about perfection. This is just life. And no matter how good your parents are, they did things that were traumatic for you. So we get that programming. Here's the last rule. Stop trying to change others. You can coach others, you can influence others, you can set boundaries, and as a leader, you have choices. They can stay employed or they can not, or they can be moved to a different department, a different job. You have choices, but when you want something more than someone else does, you're going to feel a lot of things you don't need to feel. You'll take on work that doesn't belong to you. You can't care more than someone else does about their own life. So stop trying to change others and stop overcompensating. Now, I want to talk about some tools, and then we're going to wrap up. I'm looking for anybody who wants to say hi. I'm going to step in real quick. Hi from Italy. Hi there. Hi, Ellen. Good day, mates. I think I know where you're from. Another from Brazil. Bangladesh. So exciting. Thank you all for showing up. Don't know what your time zones are, but I do appreciate it. And for those of you that are watching after the fact, feel free to post where you're from, what you got out of the session. And I want to say this too. If you want to share this once it gets posted, that just helps me. So feel free to share it. Feel free to comment. That's wonderful when you do that. Hi from Virginia and from India. Okay, I think I've recognized a lot of people now. So let's go forward. So let's talk about some tools. I've got 3 tools. I always like to offer practical things we can use today. So the first tool is to start practicing cognitive restructuring. And so cognitive restructuring is self-regulation through thought work. Cognitive restructuring, we actually can change our brain by learning how to notice things that aren't working for us, the thoughts we have, by not believing everything we think, and by questioning those thoughts, and by actually changing the thought. So here's the deal. This is what I understand about it so far. The amygdala in our brain, I call her Amy G, because the way it's spelled is AMYGDAL. I call it Amy G. Amy G triggers the feelings. It's our mechanism in our brain that is emotional, and it triggers us, and then we have a thought after that trigger, and thoughts and feelings start coming together to build this fuel, build this fire, and then we start to believe it because it feels so true, it feels so right. I know you've been. Hi Joseph, thank you. Someone said they've waited all day. Thank you so much from Nigeria. Thank you so much for that. Glad you're here. Hi from Orlando. Hi, Leopold. So what happens is our brain, to make it in really simple terms, it just works like that. We get triggered. We have a thought. We have a feeling. We have emotions. All those things build up a fire. what we have to do is to become aware of our physical body. Those are the emotions. And then the feelings that we have come from the thoughts and the emotions together. So here's what we have to do. We have to say, it's just a thought. Do something to calm yourself, to take that fire down just a little bit. This is going to cognitively restructure your brain. It's not an emergency. That's when I say, I'll say, you know what? It's not an emergency. It feels like it is right now because I'm feeling impatient and I can feel my heart beating and I'm getting angry and I'm blaming someone for being slow. That's my stuff. That doesn't belong to them. That's me not being able to regulate myself. You know what? I might not know all the facts. I have more facts. Like plan A is not to lash out. That's plan B. I can always lash out later when I've thought it through. I'm not at the mercy of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I'm not at the mercy. It feels bad right now, but I'm willing to let it process through. So that's practicing cognitive restructuring. The second tool is to set boundaries with self and others. So first of all, set a boundary with yourself. The only way you can do this sometimes is when you know you're going to be triggered. For example, when you're going to a funeral or you have a feeling something's going to be high conflict, you're going to a board meeting, you're going with investors, you build a plan and just say to yourself, if this feeling comes up, I'm going to excuse myself for a break. I am going to ask for a meeting later, but buy yourself some time and set a boundary. I see a question here. I'm going to see if I can answer it. When you want to be authentic by being pragmatic, your own team feels you're not being compassionate and empathetic. How can we be authentic when you have to balance both your own value system and managing sentiment out? That's a great question, Manoj. I'm going to give you a quick answer, and this is actually going to be in the book. And I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but it's a both and world. And the way that we show empathy is through radical listening. I have some programs on that. I'll probably be doing some lives on that. Radical listening is when we listen first and we hear someone. I hear you. I'm sorry that you're experiencing this. And then we start to coach them. Until people feel heard, very often we can't move the needle. So that's this bridge piece that you're talking about. You want to be pragmatic. And, I'm talking here today like, hey, we're going to stop being authentic to our bad behaviors and we're going to be realistic. But it's a both and world. It's not only head, it's not only heart. My message isn't about being touchy-feely, nor is it about being a hardline left brain leader. It's how we integrate and use everything that we know. We're clear on our outcome and we're clear that other people may not understand those outcomes, and we listen and we learn to self-manage. That's the key. I would say for you, try radical listening. Try taking a breath and saying, tell me more. Tell me why you feel that way. Walk me through. Listen to it and say, it sounds frustrating. So that's just my tip for you, is to first listen instead of trying to change and convince others. Listen to their point of view. They may have something valid. Okay, so that's a little left-hand turn here, but I wanted to answer. I'm always thrilled when someone asks a question. So thank you for that. I hope that was helpful. You can instant message, direct message me later if that didn't help. Okay, so boundaries with yourself. You're going to have to set a plan. When this happens, this is what I'm going to do, because you won't change your brain if you keep reacting. What you're doing is you're building pathways that create the same response in you. What you have to do is, like, I'm just going to share something, kind of personal to share with you how I've done that. I did grow up in somewhat of a volatile family life, and I was a bit afraid of my dad, who had a really hard time managing his emotions. And anytime I noticed, as I was older, after I got married, I would notice that when my husband walked in the house, if he slammed the door, I immediately jumped up and I felt threatened, and I felt like I was supposed to do something, like fix something to eat, bring a glass of water. A little bit personal there, but I share that to share with you that what I had to do was to say, the next time he walks in, the door slams, I'm going to keep setting, because I've trained myself to be afraid. And it's the same thing with any pattern we want. If usually you lash out or you get defensive, and I've had the habit of being defensive if something was critiqued. I think most of us have that habit. So I don't feel ashamed of that. It's just an awareness. How can I say, let me process that, or tell me more, or let me understand where you're coming from? It may be valid and it may not. That's discernment. So that's how you start to build a plan to create a new pathway. And once you start to build a pathway, other people will notice it. I want to share a real exciting a really exciting, I guess, landmark for me that I've changed some patterns. I love dance. I love Lindy Hop. I love swing. I love hip hop. I love to dance. So I take dance lessons. And my instructor the other day said, wow, you've really increased your ability to be frustrated while learning. He said, I said, really? And he said, yes. He said, used to you'd say, let's just move on. This is driving me crazy and I'm frustrated and I don't want to do this anymore. I will do this later. What I realized was that sometimes whatever feeling we don't like, whether it's anger, whether it's frustration, whether it's hurt feelings, whatever feelings and emotions and body sensations and thoughts we don't like, in order to overcome those, you almost have to welcome them and live with it for a while, and you expand. And that's what I'm talking about in the book on conflict capacity. Put yourself in situations where you're with some people that kind of drive you crazy. Put yourself in some situations where you're going to feel frustrated and you learn how to breathe through it. It's amazing whenever things don't bother you that used to. Criticisms, frustration, traffic, grocery lines, running out of time. It's amazing to be in control of your brain and of your emotions, and it is possible. We human beings can do that. I've got another question. In such a situation, the leader must control his feelings by suppressing his anger, containing the situation gently, and working to hold a calm dialogue to discuss the issue. That's right, Hussein. And I would say maybe recognizing it instead of suppressing, because suppression can lead to like heart problems later. And a lot of times once the feeling passes, we don't bring it up. Here's a suggestion I think you might like. And I know that some of these things are cultural. So, all of you from different countries, take what I say that works and throw away what doesn't. I'm still learning about many of those things, but this is a suggestion that I make. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm really frustrated right now, or I'm angry, and I'm not able to have the conversation I want to have, but we don't have to be here next week. So let me process this and let's talk about it. Because if you get leadership clarity, you can still have your feeling about it, your anger about it, and the way that you're processing it. But what it's telling you is you need to get control of yourself and then get more facts. And so occasionally you're still going to mess up. Old patterns die hard, but boundaries is going to be one of those ways to really manage anger, boundaries with yourself and boundaries with others. And with others, what I mean is that when someone is rude, you simply say, you know what, I hear that you're angry and you probably have a right to be, but I'm not available to be yelled at. We'll talk later. A boundary is something you can control. I could do a whole series on boundaries as well. But if you can set boundaries, that's a tool. So the first one is practice cognitive restructuring. Tell yourself a different narrative. Watch your thoughts, get more facts, set boundaries with yourself and others. And third is design a future self, a future identity. Every behavior we have is driven by the way we see ourselves. And even if we don't understand how we see ourselves, it's built on an identity that we've created through our narrative, through our experiences, through what other people have told us that we are. So this is what I'll do sometimes whenever I'm struggling with a conversation. I'll say, if I was whole and complete, if I didn't need anything from this person, how would I respond? Would it be different? If I was the living example of my values, and you have to know your values, if I was the living example, is this how I would show up? And if not, I need to course correct it. Or if I was the star of a movie being played out, this makes you kind of stand on that bridge and watch yourself. You're saying, like, what choices would I have? What would I do? So that's the three rules and the three tools. So the three rules is lashing out is plan A, not plan B. Stop overcompensating and doing others' emotional work, and stop trying to change others. You have other choices. They want the change or they don't. You have choices as a leader. And then on the tools, practice cognitive restructuring, set boundaries with yourself and others, and design a future identity. Who would I be? Who do I want to be? Who's my perfect self in the future? And can I align with that versus aligning to the part of me that feels not whole, not complete, hurt, upset, done wrong, victimized? Can I align with something bigger than what I'm seeing? So this is my summary. Don't use authenticity as an excuse. When someone says, that's just the way I am, my response is that how you want to be? Because there's no problem with alignment if how you are is how you want to be. But if that's not working for you, you have different options. We have choices. We can continue to grow. We can still be authentic. We don't have to like put on an act. We can still say I'm angry, but who I want to be is someone that listens. We can try on some new thoughts. We can try on some new attitudes. We can see if that fits. And I would love for you to just connect with me or follow me. That's how you're going to get updates. I try to reach out, but I do have so many people that it's hard to get to everybody. So the way to get these notifications is to follow. If you want to connect and you say that you saw me on this, I'm glad to do that. Um, Thank you so much. He's saying, you're right. This has worked for me so many times, and I've been able to get my team to be more productive through this. Great. Glad that other people are really providing that value for you. How do I deal with someone who's discovered a new management technique, example, coaching, and they apply it in every single situation? Some situations only require straightforward answers. Yeah, I hear you on that. I think sometimes just to say, I've noticed, I talk about using observable behaviors. I've noticed that you're really practicing your coaching techniques. And I was just curious, is there a time when you feel like that's not as valuable? You could just share the observed behavior. Thank you, LinkedIn user, whoever you are. Maybe it's Peter Comrie. A friend of mine always says LinkedIn user. Why? I don't know. Couple of LinkedIn users, you're so welcome. So join me, go sign up on my website if you want to, marlenechisholm.com, www.marlenechisholm.com. You'll get every Monday, if there maybe 3 Mondays out of the month, I send a short little e-zine or newsletter, and you'll be updated sometimes about some of these things. You'll be updated definitely when the book's ready to come out. I'm going to be offering some special opportunities with the book, with pre-orders and larger orders and so on. So I haven't decided what that is, but if you want to reach out to me and say that you're interested when those ideas come, I'm glad to get back with you. You can follow me on LinkedIn, or you can sign up. I put these videos on YouTube. And I'm not necessarily trying to grow a YouTube channel, but like it's just an easy place to put them. So if I want to link up, so if you want to join that, when I get new ones, they show up. Thank you so much. I'm open to suggestions for future topics once the book is published. There's a lot of content. Just want to know what you're interested in. Thanks for joining me, and talk to you later.